Let's bring in Coach Barker. Coach, as we head into the final weekend of the regular season in the CFL, my most broad question for you is, what are you expecting to go down doubleheaders tonight and tomorrow?
Well, tonight's the Toronto game, the late one, really means nothing for Toronto. They're going to play Ottawa next week. I think Ottawa's game means a little bit more because they're playing so crummy right now, and you don't want to go into the to the playoffs just off of 6 losses. And I mean, they're bad. I mean, even though they came back and made the score decent, they scored 25 in the fourth quarter to make the score somewhat close last week against Toronto. So they need to just get themselves together, get Drew Brown on the same page. Now, Justin Hardy's not playing tonight. They're sitting him out. Toronto's sitting out a lot of their team. I mean, if it was me, I'd sit out everybody I could afford. When you sit out players, it affects your salary cap. So where they are on the cap will determine a lot of who they're able to sit out. But we've talked about this, Rod. You win in the playoffs in the Canadian Football League physically, and that takes a toll on you. They're going to have 3 physical football games that whichever team, Ottawa or Toronto, whichever team wins that first game, they're going to have 2 more. They're going to go to Montreal, and it's going to be a physical football game. And then they're going to go into the Grey Cup. Same thing. So, again, I think that those kind of games make this game tonight, like for Toronto, I'm not shocked at all that Chad Kelly's not playing. When you think about it, they played Ottawa last week. So they have that whole game. That's the film they're watching, is the game they're going to play in the playoffs, the same team. So they'll just take that. Don't mess around with anything that has to do with Edmonton. The game means 0. In the overall scheme of things, all that matters, you win a Grey Cup or you don't. And that's ultimately what it is. So I don't think they have one thing to gain by playing in Edmonton and have the whole travel thing. They'll play on Saturday next week. Remember, they moved all the playoff games up to Saturdays this week. So keeping as many guys out as they can is a smart move by Toronto. Ottawa, on the other hand, again, they've got a Hamilton Tiger Cat team that wants to show the world. You got this Ottawa team going that has no business, and my bet is they're going to try to win by 30 if they can. Now, again, I think Ottawa's got to play better and got to get themselves together for the playoffs. But that game is interesting because of Ottawa being so bad right now and not wanting to go into the playoffs, have to come into Toronto and play an Argonaut team that's playing as well as anybody. If you look at last year, basically the Argos are last year's Montreal. They start out and they're 500, and now they catch fire the second half of the season, kind of like what Montreal did when they went on their tear. So that's what the games tonight are about. Tomorrow's a completely different situation. I mean, if Winnipeg goes into Montreal and wins that first game, that second game is going to be huge. Now, I think Saskatchewan's they're trying to establish themselves as a physically dominating football team because they have to in order to beat Winnipeg. And whether it's beat them in the finals or beat BC to get to them in the finals, eventually they have to do that. And that's the way they played last week. They played physical. And I think that that's going to be their mantra again this week, is play physical. Now, how long Trevor Harris plays all depends on what happens in Winnipeg. Winnipeg loses that game to Montreal. And for Montreal, they're kind of limping into this. And they have a bye next week because they earned it. But for them, they're limping into the playoffs this year. Very unlike what they did in the past. Cody's struggled. I mean, they scored 3 points last week. I know he's your son, but he has struggled lately, and they need to get themselves going. So I think they're going to put out an effort. Winnipeg. This is huge for them. To have that bye and have one game to go to the Grey Cup is everything. So tomorrow's games way more interesting. That's the day that's ones I'm working. I don't work tonight, but tomorrow's games, based on what happens now, should Montreal beat Winnipeg, then the nightcap is Saskatchewan keeping people healthy, still trying to establish themselves physically and get their team playing well, because they need to do that this time of the year, especially the way BC played last week. Who they play? One of these teams is going to play BC next week in the semifinals. It's kind of intriguing.
It's all intriguing. John in Edmonton wants to know, when do you take a breath? I was timing that. That was 4.5 minutes. I wanted to see how long.
You put me on this. You put me on the clock, so I've got to get everything in. I've got all these thoughts. This is what I do. I think about this stuff, and okay, what am I going to talk to Rod about? And then I want to get it all out, so I got to go fast.
I know. No, it's good. I was just letting you go. Do you have notes in front of you, or do you have it all up here? Tell me.
I have it all right here.
Okay.
I just
good.
got
by the
back.
way,
Actually, I just got back from my reunion, so I was down there last week.
I was going to ask you. I was going there
Fantastic.
next. How was LA?
It was great.
Okay, tell me about it.
Oh, it was great. It was just, you go down and went to my old high school. We went to a football game and, just, again, getting a chance to touch base with people you haven't seen in 50 years. And, it was a load of fun. And, we'll just wait for the next 50 year and see what happens.
What was the high school?
Arcadia High School. Clay Matthews was he was there. He looks like he could play tomorrow. We had some guys who went on and played. Dave Hostetler played for the Texas Rangers. No hockey players, but we had some Major League Baseball players, and like I say, Clay played in the NFL, and Debbie Turner from The Sound of Music, Marta, she was in our class. So yeah, it's just outside of Los Angeles, about 30 miles east of Los Angeles.
Gotcha. Okay, well, hey, if he's to be believed, Gary Echeverry told me that he and Omar Morgan went to the same high school, Hollywood High School, but that's a story for another time. That's from Etch. I can't believe
Southgate.
That story. Okay, well, there you go. Then, okay, well, that not surprised me that you would know. You guys knew each other back then, didn't you?
Yeah, I brought him up to the league when I was in Toronto, and we went to USC together. And so when we had an opening for a D-line coach, I knew Etch, and we had worked together at Occidental College in Southern California. So I recommended him to Don, and Don brought him up and loved him. He became the defensive line coach for us then, and so I've known Etch since way back when.
A beauty, a real beauty. Okay, I guarantee you did not have in your notes talking about Gary Echeverry today, but I think you might have seen us talking last segment about Trey Ford, non-committal to re-signing in Edmonton in the offseason. What's your take on that situation?
Well, I don't think he's non-committal. I think if Edmonton wants to pony up, he's be happy to sign there. The problem is that for Edmonton, they need to get their president signed so that then they can figure out what they're doing with the GM and the head coach. He's not going to go commit somewhere where he doesn't know who's going to be there. People don't realize a big part of being in the front office of the CFL is recruiting. I mean, it reminds me a lot when I was in my, formative years coaching the States, recruiting college football down there. It's no different. You're trying to recruit. When I was in Calgary, I'd use, come here instead of going to Toronto because you're going to pay a lot less in taxes because of the, the oil and gas. And you're basically recruiting free agents. You're recruiting guys who are in the States who don't have any idea what the CFL is. So a big part of being in the front office is having people with the personalities that are able to recruit the kind of guys that you want and be able to recruit free agents. Here's what's going to happen with Trey Ford. Somebody's going to make a decision. Now, we don't know that, Calgary went and got P.J. Walker. But we don't know that Dave Dickinson and John Huffnagel haven't said, we're going to go get Trey Ford. So don't, and that they've already talked to Fred Weinrich, his agent, and they're all set, and they'll just play it because you technically can't do that, but that's the way it works. But there's somebody who may have already said, "Listen, this is what we're going to pay you," and the reason you don't want to say it comes down to money, but money is a commitment. For example, Vernon Adams, he's going to have, I believe, January 15th usually is a roster bonus payment, probably about $150,000, $200,000. So they're going to have to do something with him prior to that. The other interesting thing about Vernon is his contract is guaranteed, meaning his last year of his contract, which I don't believe is next year, but the year after, half of his contract is guaranteed. So whoever takes him on picks up that guaranteed contract. So they're basically on the hook for that also, which, again, somebody who's going to go after Vernon Adams, they're going after him to be their starter. So if that's the direction they go, I think with Nathan Rourke, that contract's going to be difficult to move. He's 800,000, and so much of it is in. I think 200 of it is in promotional money. Well, some places you can't give a guy that much money. They don't have that much promotional money. So, he may not be a market, because say VA comes out, lights it up, and BC wins the Grey Cup, and he's the MOP of everything. I just don't see them getting rid of him. I just don't.
They can't.
I think it showed.
They can't. Yeah.
It showed in the way their football team played with VA under center that team wanted VA under center. Nothing against Nathan, but he's the guy who had brought him there the first half of the season.
How big is this game, or this next 3 games for Trevor Harris? Expiring contract, aged quarterback. How big is it for him to get it done?
Oh, well, I think it's for Trevor. You always want to be the guy he's won Grey Cups, but he's never been the guy who was the quarterback that took him all the way. He was behind Henry in Ottawa. He was behind Ricky with us in Toronto. I think for Trevor personally, it's huge for him to go. And ultimately, quarterbacks to me are evaluated and graded on Grey Cups and how many do you win. So I think for Trevor, these games are huge. I think he loves Saskatchewan. I think he's a good fit there. But like you say, he's 38 years old. Now, they don't have, I like Shea Pedersen, but I don't think he's the heir apparent. They've got some real good young players. Shoot, I think Logan Ferland's got a great chance to win Outstanding Lineman Awards. He's been so valuable for Saskatchewan. They've got some good young pieces. They'll get Yoshi, they'll get Hardrick back next year. So their offensive line will be better coming in. But they've kind of established themselves. I think Trevor would love to be able to go into that situation that he knows and still have the job. If they go one and done, he may be done. I mean, you look at it as, okay, where he's 38 years old, how many opportunities do you get? But if he gets close and he plays well and does the things I think he's going to do, I think he's going to rise to the level he needs to, that's going to set him apart as an elite quarterback. Because now is when you become elite quarterbacks, is in the playoffs. Chad Kelly, he's got huge pressure on him because of what happened in last year's Eastern Final. So he's got to play great in the semi, but he's also got to play great in the Eastern Final. Everybody forgets what he did in the Grey Cup. But it's what do you do in these games that determine what you are. Zach Caleros is a first ballot Hall of Famer because of what he's done this time of the year for the last 4 years. They win today. If they are tomorrow, if Winnipeg wins, they're going to go, I believe it's 5 in a row, they're going to have won the division. That's Zach Caleros. So playing well this time of year separates the good quarterbacks from the great quarterbacks. And again, VA, the same thing. Same type of thing. Cody Fajardo. Last year, he got that off his back. He won the Grey Cup. in heroic fashion. That throw he made will go down as one of the great throws in Grey Cup history. So whatever you want to say about Cody Fajardo, he's done something a lot of quarterbacks never get an opportunity to do, and that's win a Grey Cup. Take a team down, you're behind, and win a Grey Cup. Cody's done that now. So that pressure's off of him. Again, and then you look at Drew Brown. What's Drew Brown going to be? Is he going to be that guy who in the playoffs his game's going to elevate? So that's what you watch in this. To me, this is quarterback time. Yeah, we have to be able to run the ball, and it's physical, and you need to do that stuff. But it's don't make mistakes and do things that'll give your team, make enough big plays that if your team gets behind, shoot, if it's just don't turn the ball over and your defense plays great and you get a couple of turnovers and easy scores, great. That's what you have to do to win. But if your team gets behind, you have to be good enough to be able to bring that team back. And some guys in this league aren't, and some are, some aren't. And this is the time that we can make that decision, Rod.
Matt Dominguez said it. Regular season makes all-stars, playoffs make legends. We're not out of time. We're way past time. So, Coach, thanks for this. Enjoy the games tonight and break a leg tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Rod.
Great job from the CFL on TSN's Jim Barker. We'll be right back with a sports update after this. Viewer takeover on the way. We're live on the Game Plus television network. WQEE Radio down there in Atlanta. Live streaming on YouTube and, of course, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.